up, guys? This is your favorite coach, Coach Smith. Love the game 24/7. Man, I know it's been a little minute since Coach has been live, but hey, I'm back. I'm here. So I appreciate you guys. Man, if you hit that subscribe button, as you see it there on the left, whether you're watching this live or you are watching this uh, recording later of the show of today's show, Saturday, May 3rd. Hey man, I'm excited to be back talking about helping you young athletes, you male and female young athletes and parents in the recruiting process and talking all things sports, right? That's what this show and my channel is all about, man. So I appreciate you guys jumping on and sharing this link, this invite, sharing this link to those that need some guidance and getting great information from your favorite coach, right? Your favorite recruiting coach, Coach Smith. For you guys out there who love sports, right? You young athletes, right? And parents who need some guidance, I'm helping your young athlete get on track for being in line for some scholarship opportunities in their sport. And so I'm always excited to do that, but always, excited too to talk about sports. But I've been a little tired because I've been doing my treatment. I've shared with some of you guys. I had the prostate cancer. So I'm thankful for my doctor, Dr. Adebo, my family doctor here, who caught some things early to help me be on top of that diagnosis and got myself cured and healthy. And I'm just following up with some radiation treatment to be sure everything is good. And I know it will be. Thank God for that. That's who I put my faith and trust in. And he allows certain things to happen so we can get out ahead and get out in front because he knows he has plans for me to help a lot of you young athletes and parents, helping you all through the athletic recruiting process for college sports scholarships, as well as general college scholarships, right, to help pay for that education. So please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so when Coach Smith goes live on Love the Game 24/7 YouTube channel podcast, that you guys know that I'm here and giving some great information. So I appreciate it as always. And as I said, thanking my doctors for being able to, sometimes I get a little tired, but with my treatments, but hey, I'm fighting through and trying to, and will get myself back on here more and more to give out some great information and events that'll be coming up, right? You have my YouTube channel, lovethegame247.com, that I'll be updating about the webinar, the recruiting webinar for you young athletes out there who need some guidance and you parents who need some guidance. I'll be giving I'll be announcing that date this summer for you young ladies and you young men out there who are playing middle school and high school sports, right? And you parents out there who need some great information on this recruiting process, because it is definitely something that there's a lot of different things, new things, and a lot of changes. But yet still in the recruiting game and in athletics, a lot of things haven't changed, right? You still got to put in the work, okay? You still got to be committed and dedicated, right? You still got to be sure, that you sell yourself, market yourself by what you do on and off the field or court or whatever sport you play on the track, right? Or on the pitch, right? On the soccer field, right? On the golf course, whatever it is, on the diamond, right? For baseball and softball or volleyball, right? Um, you got to be sure that has never changed about sports and trying to achieve excellence and greatness, right? And to get some attention to help you earn an athletic scholarship. I appreciate you, Cindella. Appreciate it. I definitely want to be sure I give you guys some great information. I'm a great resource, somebody who played at every level in football, in high school, college, and pros. Have a son, older son, who was blessed to play at every level as a current NFL athlete. Played major Division I, Power Five uh, college football at Boston College, and a lot of young men that I've gotten to know, that I've mentored through my son's teammates and other young men that I've coached in little league and high school, and young ladies in track and field. And these opportunities, man, will find you if you put in the work. And so that's what this channel is all about. And I got some great events coming up. Um, that I'll be doing and involved in and sharing that to you all out there, who need this information, especially with NIL opportunities and all these great things that are happening. And I'll share more about that as well on today's show. But there's been a lot going on, right, in college sports. It's been a lot. Pros as well. We got the NBA playoffs happening. We got the NHL playoffs happening. There's a lot of excitement. Track and field and colleges picking up. Okay, right, and we're watching the pro athletes in track and field with some of their meets coming up as well. We got college spring football just ended, and now high school spring football in some areas in the U.S. are doing spring football before school turns out. The college academic year is winding down and ending, so we got graduation and things happening up. So there's a lot of exciting things going on, especially in the world of sports. A lot of drama as well. Shedeur Sanders, right, in the draft. You got Shannon Sharp with all the craziness going on. We got the transfer portal in men's and women's basketball, college basketball, and men's and football. And it happens in other sports as well. It's not just those major sports, but there's transfer portal things going on in every sport in college. So there's a lot of excitement. We got Ford Wiley, who left South Carolina, left her hometown favorite team to transfer at LSU, knowing that her coach at South Carolina and the coach at LSU, they don't, they butt heads sometimes because they're competitive. I'm not going to say they don't like each other. I know they're just very competitive. But, how you asking yourself, how can Ford Wiley transfer and leave South Carolina and go to LSU and not stay there with some of her teammates that she grew up playing AAU basketball with, because it sounded like that's what the plan was going to be, right? When Janaya, I think it is, that left FSU, the scoring leader in college women's basketball, and transferred to be with her AAU teammates in South Carolina with Don Staley. So yeah, it's just crazy. And then you got some UCLA transfers. There's a lot going on. There's other schools having transfers and teams picking up players. Even where I work at my college, we got some major transfers in men's basketball, and we even had some in women's basketball. So it's going to be for an exciting new year in college sports. After the summer's over, it's going to be some great stories and things that are happening, and you're going to hear, some things first from right here from Coach Smith. But I'm here to help you young athletes, right? You parents, right, of middle school and high school athletes, and how to get yourself noticed, how to get yourself exposed, right? Whether you're an athlete or not, I'm your guy. I'm your resource, Coach Smith, right? Love the game 24/7, right? 25 years in college environment as a college administrator, assistant director in financial aid. So I know about how to find money to help pay for your education. And some of you all out there, and maybe in other countries that watch and catch my show, and you're interested in playing football, right? Because we have a melting pot of athletes from all over the world now in football, and basketball has always been that way. Baseball has been that way, right, with our Latino brothers, right? And of course, like I said, soccer, right? And so a lot of you need to hear about how you can get a scholarship, but you got to be able to market and sell yourselves, right, in your sport by putting in the work, putting in the grind, right? Knowing how to train properly, right? Playing more than one sport. You need to play more than one sport to help you, elevate, right? You may love this one sport more than another one, but that sport that you don't love as much as the other one may be the one that may be your ticket, right, to get yourself noticed and get you a scholarship. And you can still potentially play both sports, okay? But like I said, there's been a lot going on in the world of college sports and sports in general. A lot of excitement, right? We saw the Warriors not in the series with the Rockets last night, right? We saw the Knicks, take out the Pistons, which was a good series. I watched that. The Nuggets and the Clippers, right? The Clippers ended the Nuggets' opportunity to knock them out, and now we're going to Game 7 with the Nuggets and Clippers, and Game 7 with the Warriors and Rockets. So it's going to be exciting to see how this thing unfolds as we wind down, to the conference, championships, the East and the West and all that. NHL is doing the same thing. I saw the Florida Panthers take out my Tampa Bay Lightning, and Tampa Bay Lightning, has ruled it for years and probably could have had more NHL Stanley Cups than what they did. I know that the COVID year hurt us because They won it the year before. I think COVID happened, and then things got kind of shut down and hurt us. Or I think, or it was, if it wasn't COVID, it was the strike or something like that. I think they may have had. For you out there, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know there was a time where my Lightning won a NHL Stanley Cup, and then because of some issues, they would have repeated, but they didn't get a chance to. But still, they ruled for quite some time, right? We had the Panthers number, but now it seems like the Panthers have our number. The Rays are starting out slow right now for whatever reason, and it's always definitely pitching and could be an issue. But offense, the bats are not lightening up right now. They're not lighting it up, and the bats need to get. We always come out swinging in the beginning of the year, but hey, maybe that's a good thing because I know several years the Rays have come out lighting it up and being having the best record, and then we go south as mid-season comes around, and they kick it back up and then go downhill and don't really do well. So maybe this is a good sign of them not really starting out too great right now, but then they'll pick it up, as the season progresses and do well. But for you young athletes out there in whatever sport that's happening, you need to be in front of the TV. You need to be watching. You can't always be in front of the video games, which sometimes you have to have that outlet and play your video games, and that's cool. But you need to be focused. You need to be paying attention. Like I said, with the transfer portal, with like Full Wiley leaving LSU, South Carolina to go to LSU, and how some of these other young ladies have moved around, right? And I know a lot of it had to do with some coaches being fired in women's basketball. There was a lot of that happening with some of the ladies transferring because their coach got let go because of maybe they didn't have success where they are, right? And that coach is going somewhere else. Maybe not as a head coach, but now some people did leave for better jobs. Some coaches got fired because they didn't have, 2 or 3 good seasons, and it was just time for a change that the alumni felt, right, or the AD felt. But that comes from the alumni, and so with all the changes, sometimes with movement with coaches, you're going to have some players that are going to transfer because coaches are going to go coach with friends at other schools, and they may bring some good players with them, right? And so that always is the case. So we're not surprised there if you're into college sports and you know that happens. But like I said, there's a lot of great things going on, but it's going to be crazy and exciting as we come up in the new year with all these changes happening in men's and women's basketball and also college football. And like I said, I know the high school kids are now. I know back in Florida they started this week with spring football, and it's alive and well and kicking, and so there's a lot of energy there. Texas, I'm sure, we're some of the few states in the South that still put on the pads and have full contact for our spring football, and so we tend to get or draw a lot of the college coaches there because they get a good eye of seeing kids in live action, right? Full contact action, right? To see who's timid and who's not timid when it comes to that full contact. So, but yeah, so that's the thing, So with that being said, these college recruiters are hitting, hitting these high schools, right? I know my former high schools where I coach, Clearwater Central Catholic, mainly, we would have well over 100 plus college recruiters, Division I college recruiters come watch us. Maybe not all at once, but throughout the 3 or 4 weeks that we have, or 20-something days that we have it, we have a lot of visitations with college recruiters that will come in, as well as I'm sure many other high schools across the country they do. But you're going to get probably more of those college recruiters coming to the schools where they can see kids with full contact. But still, they're going to come wherever they can and find talent. And so you young athletes out there, whether you're football, like I said, I may address a lot of times with football, but we know the summer is coming up, which means college summer camps are coming up, and usually they'll get started around end of May, 1st of June. And if you haven't, young athlete, got on those websites and filled out those questionnaires, because that's how some of those coaches will come visit your high school, because you're in their database, because you filled out the questionnaire, right? But I'm not going to give away all my information, because like I said, I'm putting together a webinar to do a live Zoom conference and webinar for me to give this information to you, and it'll be pricing and all that stuff, and great deals for early sign up and all those things. I'll release that as we get closer to the summer getting kicked off, but that'll be happening. And so you don't want to miss that. I don't care what sport you play as an athlete, whether you're male or female, you don't want to miss that webinar when I release that date and event on my website, lovethegame247.com. You definitely want to be sure you bookmark my website, lovethegame247.com, and get all that great information on camps that I'll be involved in with offense, defense as well. I'll be working with offense, defense, and helping out from pretty much June, pretty much all summer long. I'll be involved in the Southeast and probably the Texas area during the summer with our June kickoff of camps. So look for that information as well that I'll be sharing with you guys with dates of where I'll be, where Coach Smith will be. But like I said, I'll be putting together this webinar for you guys to join up and pay to get some great information so you can get out ahead and get out front with your recruiting process as a middle school student and a high school student. Okay, and it's going to be very important that you get on that you sign up, register, and get this great information from the webinar that I'm going to do on my Zoom, and I'll be putting that together, and you'll be able to ask some questions after we go through the webinar. It won't be long; it'll be straight and to the point, and give you a lot of time as parents and young athletes to be able to ask questions, right? And it'll also be for those who, like I said, who don't play sports but just want some information about how to pursue scholarships, because I'm always going to be giving information about financial aid, right? How to apply for your federal and state financial aid opportunities as you get ready to graduate high school. Some of you guys getting ready to matriculate out of high school. And also, I want to tell some of you young athletes who are getting ready to graduate and leave and get ready to play your sport, right? You're going to be having to report sometime this summer. So your summer is not going to be long for you athletes, especially you football players and basketball players, and some of you baseball players. They want to get you acclimated to how they do things in their program, and some of you guys are going to get caught off guard because everybody's been showing you love through the recruiting process. Now they're going to really be getting on your butt because now it's time to coach you up and get you caught up on how they do things where you're going to be playing school, whether you're at a FBS Division I, FCS Division I, or Division II program, Division III, no matter. But now they've invested in you and gave you, whether they gave you a full scholarship or a partial scholarship, they've invested in you. And now they're expecting you to come ready and prepared mentally, emotionally, and physically, right? Sometimes all we think about is, I'm just in shape, I'm in great shape physically. But you need to make sure you're in some good emotional health, right? Mental health, okay? Because now that coach that was loving on you and hugging you and excited because, you help him keep his job because he signed some great young athletes, or she signed some great young athletes, right? In their sport that they coach, okay? And you're one of their, definitely one of their athletes that they're looking at to help elevate their program. And now, there's going to be a bit of pressure, but now this coach is going to start yelling and getting on you probably if they see you slacking. And hopefully you're not somebody that slacks, right? Hopefully you're not somebody because it became easy to you at your high school and where you played that now you're going to have to deal with some adversity because you're going to get a little homesick, right? That always happens for the most part. Almost everybody gets homesick, right? And parents, you got to be careful that you don't provide any kind of opportunity for them to quit and return home and miss out on a great opportunity and they had a scholarship, okay? And you don't want that in your history. And now things happen, I understand, and some of you got to learn that if that does happen to you, what it is that you need to do to bounce back. But I'm here to tell you to try to help alleviate that, to help give you some forethought on, hey, let me prepare myself, right? Mom and parents, you should have been already, helping your young person, learn how to transition and getting ready to prepare to move away from home. For a lot of us like me, it was exciting, man, to be out on your own, of course, oh yeah, I can stay out as late as I want, do that, hang out, I don't have my parents on my back and all that stuff. But, it's time for you to show that you are responsible, that you are a responsible young person. And you got to understand, they've invested, your institution that gave you that scholarship, they've invested thousands of dollars in you. and they're going to expect that you're going to come through, and you need to come through, right? Because they saw that you had a talent, right? They're not going to stay behind you in your academics for the most part. Some places will, they will lean on you. Some of them aren't. They're going to expect that you're going to know how to do that because you learned from being at home by your parents and the responsibility of what you need to do as far as making sure your academics are straight so you can play, so you can perform, right? So you can have that great experience and opportunity of playing college sport at whatever level it is. So right now in this summer, as school is winding down, you're getting ready to graduate, and it's all exciting, and everything seems so lovely. You're gonna have those moments, man, when it's time to practice, and you got to get up early in the morning, and you got to go, lift weights, and you got to run, um, and hopefully you're doing some of that stuff, now to you know, to get yourself prepared for that. You only want to do so much, right? You don't want to overtrain because they're gonna get you when you get on campus, right? When you get on that college campus, trust me, they're gonna get you. But you need to have some sort of your marker. You need to already be at some point where you're okay. You're in some decent amount of shape to be able to kick it up a notch when you get on campus for whatever sport you play. And so you got to be sure that hey, you're focused, ready. You got to be focused. Mom and dad, you got to some things you got to just say, don't say anything and just let them and be late in saying something to them and and just let them know. You may say a little bit here and there and just say, hey, look, you got to get ready, young lady, young man, to go off to college and play your sport. And mom and dad's not going to be there to lean on you and say certain things. So you're going to have to, you know, man up or woman up, you young athletes. You're going to have to do that. Okay. So it's on you now, right, to show that you are responsible. Okay. That you can do this. Okay. So, but that's why what Love the Game 24/7 is doing this webinar for you young athletes that are still in middle school and high school that may not have gotten some of this information. You're going to get it from Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 to help prepare you. So when you become a senior, it's time for you to leave home, young lady, young man, you young athletes, right? That you've been told, right? You've been prepared. You've heard it from other people, and not just your parents, because you think, oh, all your parents don't know what they're talking about. But you're going to hear it from people like Coach Smith and other people that I invite on here, like my son, who will tell you, right? Who used to sing those same songs that some of you young athletes sing, and then later in life he realizes after going through it, like, man, I really appreciate how you and mom did hold me down and say, and I'm not talking about physically holding down, we use figure of speech here, but how we held them down and letting them know, like, hey man, you got greater things coming for you. You can't do what everybody else does, right? You can't do what everybody else do, right? Not if you saying you want to be great and you want to do some big things and you want to go play, major college sports at whatever level you get to play it, because it's all major, because it's all, driven by, monetary, what kind of money, right? That you can help make that or help that school generate through merch, through food sales, ticket sales, right? Whatever it may be, right? All that stuff is vital and important, right? And I don't care what level you play at, that all that stuff is important, right? Um, More and more of the other lower levels like Division II are playing on TV now, right, and getting some TV money. Okay, especially if they're can put a great product on the TV screen that people are going to watch and take time to watch it. It's just not people who love college sports, no matter what level it is, they just want to watch it, right? And so now that has been picked up for Division II schools and even some Division III schools to get some TV opportunity. Not at the level like Division I. Of course, we know that it'll never be to that point, but it's better than what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago or more when I was playing. Okay, so so that's what it's all about. Okay, and you want to be sure you do your part so to set yourself up and your teammates set you got yourselves up, right? So you want to be sure, young lady, young man, you young athletes, that you're doing your part, right? When you don't think nobody's watching, you're doing your part. Okay, and make sure you're doing your part, because it's not just about you, it's about the program, right? It's about your teammates, right? It's about, the alumni who are pumping money into that program, making sure you have the things that you all need to perform at a high level, right? All that stuff. And so you want to be sure you're doing your part. But you guys right now, you seniors who are getting ready to leave home, I just hope, that you have prepared yourself. Now you can always catch Coach Smith and LoveTheGame247.com. I know some of you guys on social media. You can always catch some of my information out there as well that I put out there to help you even while you're in college, right? But it's time to grow up, right? It's time to man up. It's time to woman up. Okay, you've been prepared to do this. Okay, you've been prepared to do great things. Okay, God has blessed you with a great gift and talent, and you've been blessed to potentially get some scholarship money, to get some exposure, right? And some of you all are going to be blessed to have some NIL opportunities, some brand opportunities, because you know how to handle your social media, where it's not just about bragging on you, but you're showing yourself and your teammates having some success and putting in the work, putting in that grind, right? And so, and I know we have better, technology today. We didn't have iPhones to FaceTime. I could FaceTime mama and talk to mama and daddy or something and just still have that connection. Those things will help some, right? They definitely will help. But still, I always say you're still going to get homesick and you got to learn how to fight through that. Some people may not bother, right? Because now, in some situations, mom and dad can come visit, right? Or come to the games on weekends. I didn't have that opportunity. We didn't have a lot of that opportunity when I was coming up. There's more opportunity for those things today where parents, will be at games and have the ability to be at games, especially with some students being able to earn some NIL money to be able to say, hey, I can pay for my mom and dad to fly out to the game, right? So it's those opportunities as well that has helped improve. But one thing I definitely want to share, especially during this draft, like I said, we had all that craziness with Shedeur Sanders, right? And he's past all that. We're past all that. What happens happens. A lot of us who know, we're not surprised, right? We know what time it is. We know some things aren't going to be fair or the same. And living in this world, I know that it's the way it is, right? So we shouldn't be surprised, okay? So we need to stop acting like this is something that we're surprised that this happened, okay? For whatever reason, okay? We know there's racial issues in this world. We know there's a caste system. We know there's a whole lot of different things going on, right? Women don't always get as fair opportunities. We've had all these things, and they continue to happen. And more of it gets exposed, right? We know there's a lot of unfair things that happen. And so, I'm not going to get on my spiritual thing because I'm here to talk about sports and try to help you stay encouraged and fight through adversity and persevere and stay the course, keep your vision and keep your focus, right? And use your talent and gifts, right, to help move you and help bring you success and help, carry you into other gifts and talents that you have other than just your sport, because you have more than just one gift and talent. Your sport at the moment, at this time in your life, is the more magnified one, right? Because it's paying for your education, right? It's potentially being able to pay for your education. And so you got to use that, right? And you got to take full advantage of using that opportunity right now and that, so it can open up doors and other things that you desire to do, right? So let's not just get one track mind. Use this opportunity in your sport, right? Or if you're a great scholar, right? Use that opportunity, because they do give full scholarships, merit scholarships, right? We do give full scholarships, just like if you're an athlete because you're a brilliant mind, right? So, but I just want to bring up, we saw everything that happened in the draft with the NFL with Shedeur, Sanders, and how that stuff became, news. But like I said, he's moved on. He's in Cleveland putting in work, right? He was raised a certain way to deal with adversity, right? And that's what we're supposed to do as parents, do our best, right? To train up a child in the way they should go and how they're going to deal with certain things. And so for Shedeur and Shiloh, they're good, right? And they're going to be fine. And I enjoy it. I appreciate, like I said, I don't mind putting other people on, but I enjoy watching Cam Newton's little piece on what he put out there and some advice that he said he would give Shedeur if he could speak to Shedeur at that moment. And like you said, don't go there with the clout. You already have all that. You've already accomplished that. So go to Cleveland, right? Go there showing them that you're ready to work and put in work no matter where you've gotten drafted. But you're blessed to get drafted no matter where you do, because you're going to get an opportunity when you're drafted over other guys, even if you're not as good as some other guys. Some guys get missed and don't get drafted, all right? I can speak on that personally from my situation as well as my son, and that's just the name of the game. When you're not a draft pick, you got to work harder, even if you are clearly better. And there are guys who are clearly better than guys who got drafted, period. Just gonna be honest with you, right? when you get up in there and get an opportunity to play pro ball and see what's behind the curtain, for those of us who's been blessed to have that opportunity, and you realize, like, man, you realize that some guys like, oh, I know why he got drafted where he was drafted. Yeah, yeah, he or she is. Oh, they're him, right? They're her. You understand why some people did get drafted the way they got drafted, and there are times where you don't understand why some people got drafted and why you didn't get drafted, right? And everybody has their own, has their own way of getting there, and you can't focus on that. The only thing you can focus on is what can I do now, right? What can I do now? And sad to say, sometimes you're going to get turned down. Sometimes, well, you may make it, and you may not get to play as much, right? Because sometimes you got men who run most of these teams, and men are very prideful, right? And they'll try to do everything they can to make themselves right, even when it's clearly that they're wrong for. Just telling you, they're clearly wrong, but they're gonna do everything they can to try to make something right that they know they ain't gonna be able to make right because of pride, right? Not saying women aren't prideful, but men can be very prideful, and you have to teach your young person, right, male or female athlete, how to deal with that adversity when they have a coach that they have to deal with. But Shadura is in Cleveland, like I said, Sanders, and he's out there doing work. But like I said, Cam Newton said it clearly: go, man, show these folks that you're ready to play. You're committed. You've already been putting in work. Because I'm telling you right now, because of how they were raised, that young man is already pro ready. Period. He's already pro ready. Okay, a lot of kids don't have that blessing. Some kids do, because maybe they've been coached by some coaches who played at every level, and they've had that opportunity to learn, just like Shadua and Shiloh have with Dion, right? And those other young men that got the blessing of being coached by Dion, and all those other coaches that Dion has around him at Colorado that played at every level, they have learned how to be pros. They're already ready to be pros. Okay, and you best to believe Shadua and Shiloh, growing up in that household, how their father trained them in the way they should go, and recognizing that they have a gift and talent, right? It may not be to the level that he has it, but they have it. Okay, and they're already ready to go pro. Okay, they already have that mindset and work ethic and knowing what to do. Okay, and so I'm just excited and looking forward to it. But I appreciate Cam Newton just throwing that out there, saying, "Hey man, don't go there with the watch, with the watch thing and all that stuff. Don't go with the bling bling. Come in, man, with, hey, I'm ready to get down to business and work." Okay, because it's clearly, to me, he was one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft, right? But I digress. I'm not going to keep hanging on that. But one other point that opportunity I got to do is listen to Pat McAfee. And he had Jason Light, the GM for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, my hometown favorite team. And also I saw him, he had the GM for the Rams. But Jason Light shared during the Pat McAfee show when I watched it this week, something that I heard that really caught me. Several things that he said. One thing he mentioned was about the NIL. Pat McAfee asked him about, what was his feelings with some of these kids who they drafted that have had the opportunity to have NIL deals for multiple seasons as college athletes, right? Because there's some kids that came in drafted last year and the year before only had 1 or 2 years of opportunity to be in NIL, and I think some of these guys that came out this year, they've had multiple years of having NIL opportunities. And he said that one thing that has really impressed him about the NIL opportunity that totally has changed his mind is that these kids are coming in and parents are coming in with more money sense, right? Because when you're getting drafted at a certain level, you're getting ready to get paid multi-millions of dollars. And one of the main concerns that they're concerned about is sometimes giving some of these young men who are instant millionaires, first time having this kind of money. And when you're younger, you're my dad used to always tell us, you're young and dumb. And we are when you're younger. You don't have, much to go off of, right? So we do some things that we shouldn't do, right? And all of a sudden you're getting money, and we've heard stories of things happening, right? Kids speeding and having accidents and killing people. And the young man, unfortunately, we've heard that happen. And you gotta think, if we've heard these things happen before, you gotta stop thinking, young person, that, you're gonna do it different. Drinking and driving you ain't gonna be able to do that better than somebody else. Drinking and driving is not something you should be doing, no matter what age you are, right? But a lot of times young people do it because, oh no, I'm not going to do it like he did or like she did. Oh yes, you are. If you don't have somebody that's going to put you in check and put you in place. But Jason Light, the GM for the Bucks, just said, man, how refreshing it was to know that these kids today are a lot more wiser and smarter about how they handle their money since they've had these NIL things and how, NFL is going to do their research. Trust me on that. NBA, all these pro teams, they have access and they're going to do their research. They're going to turn over every stone about your personality, your behavior, your conduct, all that stuff. They're going to ask people that you don't think they're going to ask, the janitors, all that. They're going to ask. Okay, coaches, right? Other coaches who don't even coach you, but they see you on campus and how you have conducted yourselves. So they're going to do that. They're going to turn over every stone. And as Jason Light, the GM for the Buccaneers, mentioned about how refreshing it was to see that these parents and these young kids have done a great job of handling their money, investing their money. And no longer do you have to try to woo a kid to show that you're interested in them and saying, hey, we're looking to, help you be able to help buy your mama her first big house, nice home, paid for. And it's like these kids today with NIL money, it's like, man, I already got my mama a house. I want to know how much you guys are serious about wanting me to be a difference maker for your organization, for your NFL franchise or NBA franchise, whatever it is, NHL franchise or MLB, right? And so he mentioned about how he thought it would be different. He thought it would be more of a struggle, right? Or more of these kids are being prideful, but he's like, no, most of the kids are still humble. Like, hey, I'm thankful that I had NIL opportunities. My family's already taken care of. That's not why I'm playing football or basketball, whatever sport it is. I'm playing because I love the sport. And that's what these teams want to know. They want to know how much you love it by your work ethic, right? And the things and what you're doing. And some of these schools are doing a good job of institution that, where these kids are getting NIL opportunities, giving them some financial literacy, right? They don't have to, but they're providing it. And if these young kids, you young athletes are using it, great, and keep using it, right? But be careful, right? Love the game 24/7. We're able to help out in NIL opportunities, right? If you feel like somebody who's representing you is taking too much of your percentage, you may want to, hey, look up Coach Smith and lovethegame247.com and reach out to me, and I'll be able to, we can sit down and talk. For you young athletes college athletes who need some NIL guidance, and so you're getting trained right about how to invest that money, right? And some of these people aren't taking a huge percentage of your money helping you. That's always a big concern. So, hey, Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7, man, we're a resource, right? We know people. Um, so, but I just wanted to share that about how Jason Light shared that. And then another thing he shared about some of the kids, though, with the transfer portal situation, like he said, because some coaches don't know if a kid is going to stay at the end of the year or transfer. Some of you younger kids who are blessed to get, scholarship out of high school or in the transfer portal and transfer, these guys are getting playtime, right? Because some coaches are worried that some of their top guys may leave or transfer and go somewhere else because of NIL opportunity or whatever the case may be. It's there. So you do have some kids who are getting the opportunity to get some video, right? So you get some video footage of some kids, and then one thing he said is you got to be careful too because in watching film, because some players have transferred 2 or 3 times, you got to figure out, okay, where all did this young man play, right, or this young lady play, right, depending on what sport it is. If they got an opportunity to go pro, and they want to see video footage of you, or if they want to come see you, you got to be sure as a young athlete that you're always updating and communicating what's going on with you. Okay, that if you transfer somewhere, you got to be sure you let people know, right, in time, so they'll know how to continue to follow you if you are somebody that's a prospect for the ultimate level of playing at the pro level. But like you said, though, some of these kids, because some kids are transferring, some of the younger kids are getting in the rotation and getting that experience, right, to become better football players or basketball, whatever sport it may be. And so that's a big deal too that you young athletes and parents need to be aware of. And that's why I say it's important for some of you parents to understand, um, why you got to be involved up to a certain degree, right? Especially for your young, middle, and high school athletes, and even for some of your college athletes, as well. But that's That's what it is. So that's why Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 is doing what he's doing on YouTube and going live and sharing things and doing my webinar and doing my different events, because I'm going to be looking together hopefully next spring if I can get I got a lot of time to get it together to go back to doing some of my college bound conference things and looking to do it in some different states, back in Florida where we initially started, and here in North Carolina, in Texas, where I will be eventually relocating to be closer to my grandkids. But I'm looking to do that college bound conference again and bring in celebrity athletes, right? Who you can, hear from and talk about their experience and how it's always good to hear about other people's experiences so you can learn from it, right? So you can take notes and learn. That's how we figure some things out. You got to stop thinking you know it all. I don't know it all. That's why I said you'll hear me talk about Coach Derek Tatum, right? He's a great guy to follow. And my guy at Before You Go Pro, there's a lot of good people out there. So do your vetting, okay? That do training, just like I'll be doing some training here as well. But I'll be putting on my webinars in the College Bound Conference to where you can come, at the hotel, and we'll have different sessions and things like that for you to hear from some top athletes, but also bring in admissions folks to talk to you about for you high school athletes, and high school non-athletes and parents to hear about how the admission process works. And we'll also have financial aid to talk about how the financial aid process works. So it's giving you that opportunity to hear from the actual folks who do these things. And so I'll be looking to put that together. Hopefully I can get one or two kicked off next year, and get that planned. So I'm working on that along with my webinar this summer. But like I said, I'll be working also with offense, defense, and doing some of our camps, right? As we come across the country doing these things, and helping you young athletes in football develop your skill, and for you young ladies who play flag football to help you develop your skills because they're giving scholarships in these sports. I happen to be watching something on TV recently, and there's a tumbling or something sport now in college that they give scholarships for, and it was Oregon and Quinnipiac, women competing against each other in single and in team tumbling, like gymnastics, but not the our traditional gymnastics that we see, but it's more tumbling and different things. I look at it as well as like people breakdancing, but yes, tumbling and flips and all this stuff. I always said, hey, if you can stand on your head, they'll give you a scholarship for it. And with this tumbling that I see, there's quite a few schools, like I said, University of Oregon and Quinnipiac, that have these new sports. Man, I'm telling you, it's exciting. And so there are a lot of ways to get your education paid for, right? In the arts and the sports, right? Merit scholarships, being a scholar. There's a lot of different ways, like my youngest son did, and that's what I'm going to be talking about in my webinar, to let you know how my oldest son, who was my athlete, my youngest son was an athlete, but he didn't get his scholarships through sports. He got them through his brain, and his talent that way. But he could have got them either way, as smart as he was, and so could my oldest son. But they were blessed to get their education paid for, with very little to no debt coming out of college. My oldest son didn't because he was on full scholarship. My youngest son had a little bit of student loan debt, but nowhere near to what some of his classmates and other people he went to college with that, as I told him, ask some of them what kind of debt they're in. And, so that's what I'm going to be talking about in my webinar, giving you the strategies, mom and dad, all right, and you athletes, okay, on how to get those athletic scholarships to pay for your education, right? Because I believe, hey, everybody may not be able to make it to the pro level, but you should be able to get your education paid for and help you build relationships and help you start a great career and opportunities, business opportunities, meeting great people in college. That's what it's all about, and having that great experience of being involved in sports, right? And that's exciting. And so I just wanted to come on since I wasn't as tired today, and I know I hadn't been doing too many of my lives and different things, but I will be as I'm starting to, I got 2.5 more weeks of treatment, and I'll be good to go, and I'll be more and more back active again. But like I said, I'll be working on the webinar. But one other point that I did want to mention, like I said, where some of you young athletes getting ready to go off to college, you got to be prepared, because like I said, some of these coaches can be prideful, and I don't want you to go in somewhere and it's like a shock to you, like, oh man, like, this ain't the same person that recruited me. And they're not going to be, and they're not supposed to be, because now they got you. Okay. And so you got to be ready, young person. You got to be ready to have put your work in and ready to do what needs to be done. And so let's be sure. Um, um, oh, shoot, I didn't that. Yeah, there we go. Put that back. I was just looking to see if there was any questions. But hey, guys, hey, put some questions in the comments. Whether you're watching this live or the recording. If you got some questions, some responses, I know some of you all might be asking when is the date for the webinar. Be sure I'll be getting it out, here really soon as I'm finishing up the PowerPoint presentation that I'll be giving. Um, I'm a little more about halfway, a little more halfway done with that. But as I said, I'm excited to do that and really help you guys learn what it is that you need to do, young person. And if there are some things that I haven't touched on that you want me to touch on, you got some questions, put them in the comments, man. Let me know some things that you want to hear Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 talk about or discuss or answer for you. I'm glad to do that. Um, and like I said, you can sign up for um, uh, I'll have on my website here sometime this week. I'll put my services out there and what I offer. And like today, I have a video, Zoom with a client today in Ohio with his son, who's an offensive lineman, and looking forward to helping him. And I met the father like 2 years ago on a plane. We just having a conversation and shared what I was planning on doing, and we stayed in contact this whole time. And his son is a pretty good sized young man, a pretty athletic offensive lineman and D lineman, and I've been giving him some guidance, and so that's exciting to see that he's really starting to make some headway on his recruiting process, and that's what it's all about, guys. We love the game 24/7, right? We're gonna spend a little time. I'll schedule time with you if you want to sign up for my services. Like I said, I'll have it on my website here. I'm planning on getting it on there this week, where I'll do Zoom consultations with you for any athlete. Doesn't matter, male or female, with you and your parents. So be sure you just go to my website and you can contact me. My email is lovethe247game@gmail.com. That's lovethe247game@gmail.com. When I say love the number two, the number four, and the number seven, right? So it's lovethe247game@gmail.com is my email address. And so if you're looking for, to be provided with some of my services and meeting with you one-on-one, for, I have, I do hourly consultations for athletes and non-athletes for you parents out there who need some guidance. Glad to do it. But put any questions or comments, in there in that comment section. Be sure you hit that subscribe button, right? And know when Coach Smith is going live. Okay, so I'm getting ready to sign out and sign off here. But I appreciate you guys, man. I love helping you young athletes and parents learn this recruiting process, man, so you can have the blessing of fulfilling your dream of playing your sport at the next level in college and being successful. Okay, that's what it's all about with your favorite coach, your favorite recruiting coach, right, and your favorite referee, Coach Smith, who loves the game 24/7. Have a blessed rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys next time.